My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be Ellen Montgomery Video 24, Writing Anne of Ingleside. So here is my novel, Ellen Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. Ellen Montgomery, the historical writer, is the lady in the photograph about 1938. Okay, it's a photograph which was taken about that time. So in 1938, with another world war looming and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian author Ellen Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on her new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time. Whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child that the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who had given her life, Ellen Montgomery. Now, this is my novel in which Ellen Montgomery is a character. She's a character who's an author. She's writing a novel, okay? This is the novel that she's writing. That's the one I'm going to talk about and read about in this video. She's writing Anne of Ingleside. As she's writing that novel, her mind goes back to the days when she was writing Anne of Green Gables, the very first one. Now, that's 33 years apart. Writing the final Anne novel and writing the first Anne novel take place 33 years apart. Anne of Ingleside, as I mentioned, is a novel which Ellen Montgomery is writing in the year 1938. There have been 7 Anne novels written so far, and this novel will be the 8th. But it will present Anne as a person who's about 40 years old. So it will eventually take its place not as the 8th Anne novel, the 8th one written, of course, but as the 6th Anne novel in terms of the chronology of Anne's life. What makes it special to the main character of my novel, Ellen Montgomery, is that she has decided that would be the final Anne novel in terms of her writing schedule. There are 16 image units of the writing process of Anne of Ingleside in my novel, one in each of 16 chapters of thought in the mind of the main character. And in each case, it's the first image unit in each chapter, from chapter 1 to chapter 16, with possibly one exception. The topic is the writing of Anne of Ingleside. See if you can decide which image might not be on topic. So I will read them. Starting at chapter 1, the very first image of chapter 1 is this. This will be the final Anne novel, not the last Anne novel. That has already been written. No, this will be the final novel about Anne of Green Gables that I shall write. This one will come about the middle, not at the end. Anne will be somewhere in the middle of her life. So that's chapter 1. Let's go to the beginning of chapter 2 for another image about the writing of Anne of Ingleside. Chapter 2. The writing of Anne of Ingleside will be a deliberate act of will. It's time to earn some money to pay the bills. I call up Anne as the Queen's exchequer whenever I need her. She reluctantly comes when I call. She's the girl who pays the bills. If my readers only knew, they think of writing as so much fun. I'm a queen begging pence of her parliament. I would get more satisfaction from scrubbing the floors. So a little cynical as she begins, Ellen Montgomery. Chapter 3, first paragraph, the first image. Bright and early in the morning, the time when I get my best ideas, cup of tea, plenty of paper, my inkwell, and my pens. I'm an alchemist of many years standing. I shall transform this stack of blank paper into a book. There's a crowd outside my workshop. They're chanting the name of Anne, clutching their pennies in their hands. A new Anne novel will be a treat. Anne of Ingleside has a ring that pleases me. So a nice title to go along with the series. Chapter 4. So, what do we have here? What do we have so far? Anne Shirley, as a woman who's about halfway through her life, the middle years of adulthood, shall we say. Anne is a wife, married to Gilbert. Anne has children by number 5, 6 by the end of the book, and Anne without another little one on the way. Anne with another little one on the way. My task is to spotlight each member of the Anne family in turn. So there's a plan for the writing of the novel. On we go to chapter 5. There will be 2 groups of characters, 2 cycles, shall we say. The major note will be the Anne cycle, the Ingleside cycle of Anne and Gilbert and their brood. The minor note will be the not Anne cycle, the non-Ingleside cycle, the anti-Ingleside cycle, if I may. The 2 cycles will interact as the novel goes on, so more planning as she's beginning the writing of this novel. Chapter 6, first paragraph. The new novel will start out with a glance, just a glance, back at the days when Anne was young in Avonlea, when all was bright as a shiny penny found winking in the grass, with a visit to all the places that she found so enchanting in the early days. It will seem to all of her readers, a little less to Anne, as if time in Avonlea has almost stood still. Okay, then we'll go on to chapter 7. So, how many chapters? Yes, how many chapters? It's quite impossible to tell at this time. Some characters will have 1 chapter. Perhaps some characters will have 2 chapters or even 3. Each chapter must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The adventures of Anne, my grown-up Anne, and her Ingleside brood. Okay, then on to chapter 8. How many pages? Not to be thought of. Much too early for me to tell. A series of episodes in the lives of the Ingleside people, of the people of the family, of the people of the community. If each episode is successful, if it's true to its original idea, the number of pages won't be known until I write the last word. Okay, then on to chapter 9, first paragraph. Each episode in the novel will be a cell. Each cell will be on its own. Each cell will be self-contained. But, drawing back the camera, the reader will see that each cell is only one component of a honeycomb of words. See that honeycomb as the home of all the bees. So each component is on its own. Each component is part of a larger package, if the novel works out well. Let's go on to chapter 10, the first paragraph in a moment here. Gradually, the novel grows of itself, knits itself out of its own entrails. What goes before leads to what happens. What happens is derived from what happened before. Every word becomes a sentence. Every sentence becomes a paragraph. Every paragraph becomes a chapter. If all goes well with the writing, I just dip my pen in the ink and let myself dream. So the writing is smoothing out and picking up. Chapter 11. The ink flows across the page. The novel moves along, deeper and faster as it finds its natural course. Many drops form a river, many rivers form a sea. Now is turmoil, now is calm. The reader struggles, the reader relaxes. The reader is a paddler in a canoe. Then on to chapter 12. Characters learn to live in a novel, jostle at the feed bowl, stake their turf, learn to sense their contribution to the whole. They cry out for proper placement. Place me last. Place me first. I see myself at center stage. I see this novel as the story of my life. So every minor character wants to be a major character. And sometimes that's a problem for an author. We'll go on to chapter 13 in a moment. Here we are. Characters learn to judge an author. Here you succeed, here you fail. Woe to the author who faces rebellion. Better episodes, better descriptions, better words. Who would want to read this novel? Who could read it if they should try? A better author would make a better work of art. So what if a novel, or the characters of a novel, rebel against their author? That would make the novel very difficult to write. Okay, chapter 14. So here we are, all you readers, and we'll soon be landing at the dock. And of Ingleside will be the best that I can do. But don't bother to read it carefully. Just bounce along on the surface. Just skim along on the top and leave the rest. Take no thought of the caverns of self that lie underground. Hold Anne back if she notices a cave and wants to explore. Soon she will have another book, a tranquil island in a hostile sea, another book for her to roam around inside. But I promise you that there is more to come, a whole lot more. My son has promised to be faithful, not a kindred spirit at all, but a boy who made a promise to his mom. Someday he'll print the other words I write. Well, there's only 2 left. Let's read chapter 16, first paragraph. My mother died when I was less than 2. My father left me to go and live in the West. Name me one orphan who felt that she was loved. The world has given me fame. They believe that I am Anne. They believe that the 2 of us live in Avonlea. And the last one, chapter 16, first paragraph. Anne of Ingleside is complete in manuscript. At last, 41 chapters of Anne and Gilbert and their brood. Nothing but Anne and her concerns for 4 whole months. Appropriate, I suppose, that I finished it in December, though, of course, it won't be published until next spring. Now, so which image might have been the one exception to the image arc of the writing of the novel? Perhaps you would pick the chapter 15 image as the one that doesn't fit the topic. And let me read it again. My mother died when I was less than 2. My father left me to go and live in the West. Name me one orphan who felt that she was loved. The world has given me fame. They believe that I am Anne. They believe that the 2 of us live in Avonlea. Now, when planning to write this novel, I wanted to combine 2 major image arcs. Number 1, the sense that the life of L.M. Montgomery has been lived in the same way that every human life has been lived in chronological time, with each minute, hour, day, year, and decade following along in order. And number 2, the sense that this is a memory novel and that the lady in the year 1938, or at most 1942, the year of her death, is now free to range back over the events of her life and select what she considers to be the most significant of images and image arcs, to arrange them in patterns inside patterns, by which she is seeking to find potential meaning in her life. The smallest item in a pattern is a single image. The larger items I call image arcs. Arcs, they go through a novel, through a chapter at least. This one goes through the novel. The writing of Anne of Ingleside is patterned in this way, with 16 image units, 1 per chapter. So overall, the reader of this novel will get a double impression. Number 1, that L.M. Montgomery has lived her life chronologically from 1905, the year in which Anne of Green Gables is published, to at least 1938, the last year from which Ellen Montgomery draws information to turn into imagery, or 1942, the year in which the historical Ellen Montgomery died. And number 2, that Ellen Montgomery is selecting certain images and events in her life, such as the writing of her individual novels, as a means of considering patterns of potential meaning in her life. Now, incidentally, Anne of Ingleside is not the only one of her novels to have its own image arc within the 16 chapters of thought of the main character. In this way, the poetic novel seeks to present the complexity not only with which we humans live our lives, but the complexity with which we contemplate our lives, at least at the deepest levels of thought. We might well simplify our thoughts on the surface of our thinking, on the conscious level of thinking, but that level is only one of the levels of thinking which the poetic novel seeks to present and to explore. So, why the one image that doesn't fit, that doesn't seem to fit, that doesn't seem to be about the writing of the novel Anne of Ingleside? Well, perhaps it's to suggest that no image arc in the human mind operates alone. Perhaps it suggests that many life experiences, being a semi-orphan, for instance, are having their influence on the writing of that final Anne novel. So being an orphan might be the most important thing about that novel, the author being an orphan, but it might never be mentioned in the novel. That's the point there. So this is my novel, Ellen Montgomery, I Gave You Life. It's found on Amazon if you want more information about it. It's found on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, where there is more information as well. On my website, johnpasfield.ca, there are 2 free books, my planning notebook and my reflective journal. So if you're interested in this topic being Ellen Montgomery, the novels of Ellen Montgomery, writing in general, literature and how it works, and so on, have a look at those 2 free books at johnpasfield.ca. And lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.